Hello guys, welcome back to my mini garage. I hope you guys are doing well. It's been 4 years since I built my first Nissan Skyline GT-R on this channel. Well, I guess it's about time to build another one, but this one will be a little different. If you have ever asked me which model car you should get as a beginner, then you know my answer will always be this one. Well, first of all, it's a Tamiya kit, so the quality is excellent. It has good details and good fitment, which is very important to beginners, and it's also pretty affordable. Last time I checked, it's selling for less than $20 on Amazon. That's including shipping. Plus, this kit is the most built Tamiya kit in the world. That's a fact, according to some guy on the internet. So you will have no problem finding any reference material when you need them. And just like the Toyota Supra I built a few weeks ago, this kit also came with an engine. If you are a certified JDM fanboy, then you should know what it is, the iconic RB26 DETT engine. However, I won't be including the engine in this build, which I will explain later in the video. I started by marking the mold lines on the body with a black marker. Not sure why I would use a black marker on a black body, and why was I even marking them? I could see them with my eyes. Yeah, anyway, the mold lines were then sanded with Tamiya sanding sponge. After that was done, I moved on to rescribing the panel lines with my plastic scriber. If you don't have much patience, you can go ahead and skip this step, because the faster you wanna finish this task, the more time you end up spending on fixing your mistakes. So hold your breath and your hands steady and take it slow. The suspension and the drivetrain will be mostly hidden after the car is finished, so I just removed the parts and glued all of them onto the chassis. They are gonna be painted all together. There will be no engine or any engine-related part in the engine bay, so the bits that were used to hold the parts had to be cleaned up. While I was cleaning up the engine bay, I replaced the original firewall, which had no detail, with a 3D printed one. It took me some time to cut out the original one, but it's worth it, because the new one is looking much better. My plan for this car was not to make it look shiny or anything that just came out of the showroom. I'm actually gonna do the exact opposite. It will be in a terribly abandoned condition, which means I won't be using any of my polishing compound on this build, but I will be using my rotary tool a lot. I wanted to add some dents and dings to the body, so I attached the ball head to the rotary tool and used it to grind down the shell from the inside. Once it's thin enough, I soak the body in boiling hot water to soften the plastic. I then used a hard and pointy object to push in on the plastic to create the dent. I did crack the plastic in some areas, but that's okay as long as the cracks looked authentic and believable. Once I was happy with the look, I applied some super glue on the back to hold the effect in shape. The rusty holes and fenders were created by simply applying plastic cement to the back of the thin plastic. The thinner in the glue will slowly melt the soft plastic from the inside, making it look like the rust had eaten through the metal. Tamiya didn't give me the tow hook, so I had to make it out of copper wires. Small detail makes a huge difference. I could just leave the chassis untouched, but my hands couldn't agree, so I added some rough textures to the chassis by dabbing it using a stiff brush with some plastic cement. After all the preparation works were done, I gave the part a good bath in the sink and it was time to paint them. A coat of black primer was applied to unify the color of the body and to check for flaws. I wasn't too worried about the cleanness or the smoothness of the paintwork on this one because it's gonna get all dusty and rusty in the end. After the painting was done, I sprayed a few coats of flat clear to protect the paint. I used flat clear instead of gloss clear because the flat clear will make weathering the body slightly easier. I waited a few days for the paint to dry completely. After it was dried, I began applying weathering onto the body. I started by scratching up the front lip with some no-grit sandpaper. When the paint was chipped away, the black plastic was revealed just like the real car's ABS plastic. The body was still looking a bit too clean, so I gave it a heavy coat of dark wash to tone down the brightness of the paint. And to make it look less uniform after the wash, I used a small sponge soaked in enamel thinner to break up the surface so it didn't look like it's painted on there, and it's beginning to look like an abandoned car after this step. I wanted to add some dimension to the dent, so I painted the edge of the dent using metallic silver to imitate exposed metal. The rusty holes and fenders were painted with my usual rust making recipe, which is a combination of using acrylic rust paint and rust tone pastel powder. There are many different ways to making realistic looking rust. You can use chipping medium, hairspray, or even salt, but I found this method to be my favorite. I've also rusted out the brake rotors and the wiper blades using the same technique. After that, I glued the rest of the parts together. And the car was pretty much finished. However, the project wasn't finished without a proper base, so let's make a diorama base for it. For this diorama, I'm gonna be using this wooden base, which I bought from my local hobby store. It's not too big, but it should be big enough to tell an interesting story. As the title suggested, this abandoned GT-R is found in the desert. In this particular case, it's found in a blasting zone. A blasting zone is dangerous, so I am obligated to make a fence to isolate it from the public. I cut out a section of an aluminum tube and used that as the fence post. For the fence wires, I cut out a piece of diamond-shaped fabric, which I got from the fabric section in the hobby store. You can get a rather big roll for the price of a small coffee, and one roll will last many projects. After I was done with the fence, it was time to start making the ground. I started by placing a few different sizes of rocks on the base. I tried not to put any of them in the center because that's where the car is gonna be sitting on the base. After I glued them down with super glue, I applied a coat of acrylic gesso over the entire surface to seal the wood. A few hours later, the gesso was dried, so I put down some clear glue onto the base and sprinkled some salt and seasoning on top of it. I put a box big enough to contain the base so I can collect any unused seasoning which can be reused in the future. It's not really salt and seasoning, it's just mixed sand I bought from a supermarket. It's the same type of sand and stones people use to decorate their fish tanks. Then I soaked the entire base using IPA. The IPA will lose the surface tension of the sand. And I fixed everything in place using diluted PVA glue. I gave the glue plenty of time to cure. After it's completely dried, I took the rice cake to the paint booth and started painting it. The base is looking good and dusty, but it's a little flat. I mean color-wise. So I took out a small paintbrush and started a relaxing rock painting session. While I was painting those rocks, it's probably a good time to talk about this mysteriously abandoned GT-R. You might be wondering why there is an abandoned GT-R parked in the desert. No one knows exactly what happened to it. No one has any answers. However, there have been rumors floating around. Some said the owner of the car used to be the fastest street racer in the area. He had never lost a single race in his life. But one night, very strangely, he lost his race to an unknown racer driving a black GT-R. And after that night, he parked his car, walked away, and never came back. And the car has been parked there ever since. Another rumor is that the owner owed some local gangs a ton of money due to his gambling addiction. He couldn't pay them back, so he fled the country. The collectors couldn't find him, so they took his car, removed anything that had good values in it, and left the shell there. There are also a few other rumors too. Some said he passed away due to severe sickness. Some even said he ran away with some guy's wife, so the guy broke his car in revenge. But those are all rumors. After the rock painting session was over, I gave the base a few little cute tufts. They're so soft and fluffy, I just wanna pat them very gently. It's a lonely desert out there, so I decided to 3D print some accessories to go with the car. And of course, they were painted and heavily weathered to match the theme of the diorama. I also printed out a few empty wine bottles. They were placed randomly on the ground to suggest that a group of people were in the area some time ago, and whoever was in there definitely had been drinking more than sparkling water. I mentioned that the fence was used to isolate a blasting zone, so I put up a printed warning sign on the fence. Just in case you wanna walk in there and check out the car yourself, you are to do it at your own risk. After that, I sprayed a coat of dust to tie the whole scene together. The last thing was to paint the outer edge of the base black, and this project was finally finished. And that's it for this video. I had a good time building this project, and I hope you enjoy this build as much as I do. Thank you for watching and happy building, guys. I will see you in the next one.